So we live in two states of mind and body. We either live in a state of survival or we live in a state of creation. So let's talk about what it means to live in a state of survival. Living in stress is living in survival. And stress is when your brain and body are knocked out of homeostasis. Stress is when your brain and body are knocked out of balance. Now, we have three types of stressors in our life that turn on the stress response. We have physical stress, that's trauma, accidents, injuries, falls. We have chemical stress, that's toxins, pesticides, pollutants, viruses, bacteria, molds. And we have emotional stress, that's traffic jams, internet connections, second mortgages, single parenting, investments, family tragedies. And all of these different stressors knock the brain and body out of balance. Now, all organisms in nature can tolerate short-term stress. And when we're in stress and we perceive a threat or a danger in our outer world, we turn on a very primitive nervous system called the fight or flight nervous system, what's called the sympathetic nervous system, a branch of the autonomic nervous system, and think of the autonomic nervous system as the automatic nervous system. So then, the moment we perceive a threat or a danger, our body's knocked out of physiological balance, our pupils dilate, our salivary juices shut off, our heart rate increases, our respiratory rate increases, blood sugar and glucose is mobilized, blood is sent to the extremities and out of the internal organs, and we're prepared to do one of three things: to run, to fight, or to hide. Now, all organisms in nature can tolerate short-term stress. If a zebra is in the Serengeti and she perceives a predator hiding in the high grass, the moment she notices the danger, she turns on that nervous system and the chase begins. Now, if the zebra outruns the lion and the lion fatigues and the zebra wanders off and it goes back to grazing, it has enough time to restore itself and return back to homeostasis and balance. Now, what if instead of being chased by a lion, it's the coworker that's working right next to you, and you're reacting the same way as if you're being chased by a predator? Now, what was once very adaptive becomes very maladaptive, because when you turn on the stress response and you can't turn it off, now you're headed for disease, because no organism can live in emergency mode for that extended period of time. And as we mobilize all this energy and all the body's resources for some threat in our outer environment, we tap all the resources in our inner environment for growth and repair. Now, the arousal that's created from the hormones of stress gives the body a jolt of energy. And people over time begin to become conditioned or addicted to this rush of energy. And they use the problems, the conditions, the people in their life to react to, respond to reaffirm their addiction to that feeling. Now, human beings can turn on the stress response just by thought alone. They can think about their problems and produce the same reaction as if it was a real-life event. So then if the hormones of stress are addictive and we can turn on the stress response just by thought alone, we can become addicted to our own thoughts. And if people are using the problems and conditions in their work environment, in their life to reaffirm their dependence on some emotion, they're becoming addicted to the life they don't even like. And that's why change is so hard. So then it's a scientific fact that the long-term effects of chronic stress push the genetic buttons and create disease. And if you can turn on the stress response just by thought alone, that means your thoughts can literally make you sick. And if your thoughts can make you sick, is it possible then that your thoughts can make you well? In the research that we've done over the last 10 years, I can tell you that your thoughts literally can make you well. So the rush of adrenaline, the rush of the stress hormones arouses the brain and body. And the arousal during survival causes us to focus on three things. Number one, if you're being chased by a predator, the arousal of those chemicals causes you to pay attention to your body. Your attention is on your outer environment, a place to move, a place to go. And if you're being chased by a predator, you're thinking about time. The body, the environment, and time. So then, if to change is to be greater than your body, to be greater than your environment, and to be greater than time, living in stress means it's not a good time to change. It's time to run, fight, or hide. And the research shows that people spend about 70% of the time living in the state. So if they're living in survival, it's not a time to create. It's not a time to dream. It's not a time to invent. It's not a time to collaborate. It's not a time to communicate. It's not a time to learn. It's not a time to go within. And people then become addicted to these chemicals. And they become so addicted to them that when it comes time to change, just like an addict that has to break an addiction, they have to overcome those emotions. So now, stress is created by the perception that something is getting worse, losing control, or not being able to predict the next moment. So then when a person is in a state of survival, in a state of stress, and they're switching on this primitive nervous system, it's natural then they're going to try to control everyone and everything in their life. They're going to try to predict the next moment. They are going to see things getting worse. And out of the infinite possibilities their mind can create, they're going to select the worst case scenario in their mind. Because in survival, if you prepare for the worst, anything less that happens, there's a better chance of you surviving. So in an attempt for people to be aroused by the hormones of stress, they are going to shift their attention from one person to the next, to another thing, to another place, to another object, to another problem. And as we said, every one of those elements in their environment has a neurological network in their brain. And the arousal of these stress hormones, and the person quickly shifting their attention from one element to the next, causes different circuits in their brain to begin to fire out of sync, out of order. And like a lightning storm in the clouds, their brain begins to function very incoherently. And when the brain is incoherent, we're incoherent. When the brain isn't working right, we're not working right. And so then, when the brain moves into this aroused state and the compartments of the brain begin to fire out of order, the arousal drives the brain into a very high brainwave state called high beta brainwave patterns. And this is when we become over-focused. This is when we obsess about our problems. We become overly analytical. So then the disintegration of the nervous system as a result of the arousal of the hormones of stress causes us to become less productive. It causes us to become less creative, less innovative. We communicate less. Why? Because we're out of balance. Now, those chemicals heighten our senses and cause us to become materialists. In other words, if there's a predator around the corner and you hear something in the dark, you are going to pause for a moment and narrow your focus on the cause, on the material world. And what happens over time is people get narrow-focused or over-focused. And our research then shows that if you teach a person to go from a narrow focus to a broad focus, from a convergent focus to a divergent or an open focus, the act of opening their focus causes the brain all of a sudden to slow down out of those high beta brainwave patterns and begin to slow down into slower states. And when people start to learn how to move into the creative state called alpha brainwave patterns, and they're sensing space, not only are they moving into alpha, but what we saw is that different compartments of the brain that were once subdivided and compartmentalized begin to synchronize. And what syncs in the brain links in the brain. And when it's done properly, the brain starts functioning in a more holistic state. And the person starts feeling more like themselves than they've had in a long time. And the coherence, the orderliness that takes place in the brain and those alpha brainwave patterns causes the person to feel safe enough to begin to create, because in alpha, it is the creative brainwave state. It is the state of imagination. That is the state to dream, to imagine, to invent, to speculate, to create new ideas. And so moving out of the state of survival into the state of creation causes people to become more innovative, more creative, more communicative, more collaborative. They work better in teams with one another. They begin to trust more. They begin to support one another better. And in that state of creation is the moment where you lose track of space and time and you fall into that present moment, the sweet spot where true creation takes place.